And of course, everyone wants to know, your thoughts on what the Clippers have done in getting Chris Paul.
It's a great acquisition. I mean, it's tough. Eric Gordon, I always think extremely highly of him. And, came in and had a year there where he played extremely well. And so it's tough to see them go. But Chris is a fantastic player. I mean, they've made a great addition. He can play and compete. And, he's got Blake over there with him. So I'm sure he's very excited about it.
I think I already knew this, but just how, I think everybody knows this, how smart and just detailed of a basketball player Chris is. Obviously, he's a really good passer, can shoot the ball at a high level, but his detail and just the way he thinks the game is on another level.
If CP3 doesn't win a world championship for Phoenix, he declined that option, right, for $44 million, if he intends to decline it. Can he be a piece for the Laker organization?
No question about it. Listen, I would tell Jeannie I would add some money to get CP3, because it'll be perfect for LeBron, it would be perfect for AD, and be perfect for the role players. What has Chris Paul done for the Phoenix Suns? Ayton, we didn't see this Ayton until Chris Paul got there,
the game
right?
easier for him, right?
The Bridges, all these guys, he makes the game so easy, and you're going to get shots that you've never gotten before, right? Because you got a guy who's a pass-first point guard. And then what I love about Chris Paul this year, he's saying, okay, fourth quarter, give it to me. Mid-range. He scored, 10, 12 in a row in Denver when the game was on the line. I was at the game in L.A. when he said, the Lakers came back. He said, let me put a stop to this. I'm going to take over, score the next 4 possessions, and the game was over. I love the way Chris Paul thinks the game. See, he has that Laker mentality, and I'm still mad at the NBA for not letting that trade go through.
The late David Stern, yeah.
It was everything. It was everything. You know why? Here's why. Because it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And the fashion that he did it in, I'm going back all the way to the start of this offseason. When he was with the Thunder, right? He had a choice. I'm pretty sure him and Sam Presti sat down. He could have negotiated a buyout. He could have joined the team like the Lakers or anybody else that were favored as a contender to go and try to chase a ring. No, he didn't shortcut it. He went to the Phoenix Suns where they had a young core, where they drafted players, and he went got it in the trenches. He went got it out the mud. He didn't shortcut the grind. This is why I appreciate this so much more than any other run by any other superstar, because he didn't run. He said, I'm going to go down here with Monty. I'm going to embrace these young up-and-coming stars in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. I see they have some nice role pieces, and I'm going to be the leader. And this is why you have to appreciate Chris Paul, because of what he did and how he did it.
Well,
38's a bad night.
not since Michael Jordan did it in 1998 had we seen a guard have a conference finals game with at least 40 points and no turnovers. Chris Paul did it last night in the Suns' Game 6 clincher in Los Angeles, and in the process earned his first trip to the NBA Finals in his 16 seasons.
It's great. I mean, we had a lot of great years. The ups and downs obviously were there, but whenever you spend that much time and you go through that many battles with somebody, it's special. So, it's great being teammates with DeAndre again, and it's always fun to compete.
If a guy traded for a guy on the last place team, and
they weren't last place last.
They did not even make the playoffs last year.
They weren't. You said last place.
Well, they didn't make the playoffs. They were awful.
And then they went 8-0 in the bubble.
But that don't matter. They still didn't make the playoffs.
Okay.
And if a team made a trade in the offseason and they went from last place to first place, why would we not mention that guy for MVP? That's a very fair question.
I think that
just answer the question.
I think that he's a key ingredient. But an MVP would, to me, and now you feel like we're hating, but an MVP would mean that he is so dominant by himself
No, that's not what the
Embiid,
It ain't got nothing to do with team. Stop it.
Of course it got something to do with team.
His dominance.
Well, let me ask you a
far
question.
outweighs the
Okay,
team.
okay, that's all. What is he doing different than what Steve Nash did?
Steve Nash.
That's a good question.
As a matter of fact, as Underdog
That's a
points
great
out,
question.
Steve Nash was averaging fewer points per game than Chris Paul was.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, like you said, he took us and me, D'Angelo, Carl, pre-draft. You know, he came and worked out with us a couple of times, and that's where relationships started. But, you know, I think he thinks when we played against each other the first time that it was going to be a love, but no, I started talking shit to him right away. and what he says about, you know, we almost get to fighting, that's because multiple times we've had our disagreements on the court multiple times. And, you know, it's just those type of competitors, you know, the players that you're like, I don't like playing against that guy, but I love him on my team. And Jay Crowder is also one of them. So I've got into it with him. Got into it with him too. So, but, you know, those are the ones that you want to go to war with. You know, those are the ones you want to put the jersey on for. And, you know when it's not your day that, you know, having people behind you, having that support system behind you gives you confidence to keep going. And just honesty, you know, like what I said with Mark, you know, this group, they've been there before, you know, they've been in these situations before. So the honesty with knowing what the bigger picture is and what we're trying to get to, you know, has been since day one and not a problem with us. Just somebody's messing around, let them know.
Two things. Number one, State Farm premiums are going to go up because of what Chris Paul's able to do, getting his team to the NBA Finals for the first time in his career. So that's number one. But number two, his legacy didn't need to be proved anything to me, and here's why. Chris Paul's always been that kind of guy that people have always said, okay, does he have too much of an edge? Is he too much of a leader? Does he have too much of the basketball? Does he hog it the whole 9 yards? I'm thinking, well, you're one of the greatest point guards of all time. Things are going to be a lot better when the ball is going to be in his hands. And what did he do? He closed out the Denver Nuggets by closing out in that series, by winning 4 in a row against that team. And then when they had to have it last night, it's one thing to have 41. You put a 41 burger against the Clippers, but you go 7 of 8 from the three-point line. You also have no turnovers in 35 minutes of action when you control everything. They tried everything possible to stop you. And I can't even imagine, Charlie and Keyshawn, what the narrative would have sounded like if they did not win this series, because I firmly believe if they did not win Game 6 last night, I could see the Phoenix Suns losing in 7 because that pressure would have been immense. I don't know if they've been able to handle it very well. And for the first time, the Clippers would not have to worry about pressure being on them when it comes to a playoff series because everybody was waiting for that team to clip, and they didn't do it. They fought hard. So for me, his performance doesn't have to prove anything to me. He's been a top 5 point guard on my list all time in the history of the NBA.
You know, I've been a huge fan of Chris Paul forever, and, you know, he's old school. And I think too often in sports, we want to ditch old school. And I think there's real value in having guys. I mean, you're a guy that got into people's faces. You would jaw with Kobe. You would that's old school. Like everybody's a buddy now. You were more PJ Tucker. Even your buddies, you get in their face. I love Chris, but Chris also can wear people out. And I know that. Are you surprised by his success this quickly in Phoenix?
No. You talked about kind of, the Suns maybe haven't lost their way for a while. I think James Jones has a lot to do with that in the construction of the roster. And what I thought they were missing in that equation with that young talent that they had was a guy like Chris. And so I'm not surprised that he would come in at this point in his career. And I'm sure he's learned along the way too, how to kind of relay those messages to people, maybe in a less abrasive kind of way. Someone to hold those guys accountable, someone to tie all their skill sets together. And that's kind of what I see him doing on the floor, right? He's another guy who can close, but he's a guy who can help alleviate some of the stress off of Devin Booker, get him some easy buckets. He can also help get DeAndre Ayton cooking so you get the best out of him offensively. And all of those shooters and other guys that can make plays, he's able to help facilitate. And so you see that playing itself out on the court. But where I thought he'd have the most impact, and I'm sure, if I was in the building and really getting to ask these questions, which I'm not, someone would say, is someone that is willing to do what you're talking about, Colin, hold people accountable, be in faces, ruffle some feathers today, knowing that it'll provide dividends and we could get a win tomorrow, and not being afraid to do that. Because championship teams have to have the guy in the room that's willing to tell you when you didn't do your job, and tell me when I've got to be better in my job, and tell us collectively that we've got to play better as a group, and not be afraid of the backlash that comes with that. And so I think he's the perfect guy.
How big an influence was Chris Paul earlier in your career, and how would you sort of characterize your relationship with him now?
He was a great mentor when it came to understanding how a guy on his level prepared over the summer for an NBA season, how disciplined he was, his kind of work ethic, and I got to see that firsthand after summer league through the beginning of the season. And obviously got a Carolina connection, but he kind of just, I guess, demonstrated firsthand what it takes to be great in this league, and it was a nice little eye opener for me that summer. Work out with him, compete against him, and take that confidence I had into my rookie year and get off on a good foot.